The ANC is being torn apart as we speak. Over the past 2 decades, no less than 15 political parties have broken away from the ANC, forming smaller splinter parties and taking away little bit by little bit of the ANC's vote that they enjoyed in this country, completely tearing apart what for more than a century was one of Africa's most powerful political movements. The ANC used to seem invincible, especially during the 90s as it was united under the leadership of Nelson Mandela. At this time, the party seemed like it would remain united and powerful within South Africa, basically forever. To put it a little bit more lightly than Jacob Zuma used to. But since then, everything has changed, and especially in the past few years under the presidencies of Zuma and Ramaphosa, it seems as if the party is splitting almost annually. Of course, when we combine all of the votes that all of these splinters get together with the ANC, we still see the 60 to 66% that the ANC used to get on their own, but the fact that they are so divided and fighting each other constantly and nothing really gets done is actually amazing news for us in South Africa. The ANC as a political party revealed remarkable continuity and unity throughout the 20th and early 21st centuries, especially when they were still a struggle movement against the previous regime. For nearly 100 years, the ANC managed to rise to prominence as perhaps the single most powerful political force on the African continent, governing by far the wealthiest country in Africa with an outright majority for 3 straight decades. Yet, over the past 2 decades, everything has changed, and the party has suffered through a series of splits, one after the other. Stay tuned, because in today's video we are going to explore how the ongoing splintering of the ANC is a very clear sign that for this political party the end of the road is now nearing fast, and most of us will see the end of the ANC in our lifetimes. For nearly the first century of the ANC's existence, it exhibited remarkable resilience and durability, primarily because it always found and maintained a distinct unity in opposition towards a people and a system which united the party far more than any ideological principles ever would or could unite the party. You see, the party even underwent a major ideological transition during the 40s, as it transitioned away from its pro-colonial African nationalist and actually economically liberal roots, which it upheld under the leaders such as John Dube, the party's first president, to a very much Marxist-Leninist, Pan-Africanist, or for short just Afro-Marxist party under the influence of leaders such as Joe Slovo and the likes of him, that basically made the ANC completely communist. Of course, we know all of these figures that came over from the South African Communist Party and merged the two parties. Whereas the earlier ANC leaders had been heavily influenced by classical liberal and even Christian national political theorists, the later ANC, the one that we know today, was almost exclusively influenced by Marxist-Leninist leaders such as Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter in the 1950s was compiled to reflect. Yet, even in the midst of such a radical shift, or one can almost call it a 180-degree turn in ideology, the ANC managed to hold together firmly as a party, and the first major split would only occur in 1959. In that year, the Pan-Africanist Congress, or PAC, under the leadership of the Robert Sobukwe, that we know Gayton McKenzie named the town of Graaf-Reinet after, split from the ANC in a dispute over African nationalism and multiracialism, with the PAC of Sobukwe becoming known as the Africanist faction, the faction that did not want anyone other than black people in the party, which makes it very ironic that people like Gayton McKenzie hold Sobukwe in such a high regard, because under Sobukwe's leadership, Gayton McKenzie would be considered persona non grata, would be considered an individual who is clearly not welcome in their party or their ideology. Sobukwe promoted black chauvinism before it was cool, believing that South Africa belongs to Africans alone and that all the Jews that had such a massive impact in the party, like Joe Slovo, who at the time became the leading ideologue in the ANC and is probably the most influential person to ever contribute to the ANC, have no place in the liberation struggle or in the party or in any sort of leadership. Consequently, in opposition to the ANC's multiracial alliances and especially to the growing influence of Jews and Indians in the ANC, Sobukwe and his people split away to form the Pan-Africanist Congress. We can almost call them the EFF before the EFF. The only other split in the party during the entirety of the 20th century came only after the ANC gained political power in 1994. In 1997, Bantu Holomisa was expelled from the ANC's National Executive Committee after accusing senior party figures of corruption, particularly with allegations against the former leader of the Transkei, Stella Sikau. Holomisa maintained that he was being punished for exposing corruption rather than for any sort of misconduct, which, to be honest, at the time probably was true. While the ANC, at the other hand, argued that he had violated party discipline by making public allegations, which obviously was also true, but one can say that these allegations should have been made because the ANC was already corrupt to its core in 1997, as it was already stealing basically all of the country's money under the leadership of Nelson Mandela, with many scandals even making it to the New York Times. For instance, the Sarafina scandal, where the infamous Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was looting the state coffers to produce a movie, Sarafina 2, which was never produced, but the money just absolutely went missing. Holomisa then founded the United Democratic Movement, or UDM, later that year together with former National Party leader Rolf Meyer. Unlike the PAC split, which centered on ideology and the character of the liberation struggle and the core identity of the party itself, the UDM breakaway was driven primarily by disputes over corruption, internal democracy, and the ANC's increasingly centralized exercise of power after assuming government. One can almost say that the UDM of Bantu Holomisa was basically the first ANC that was just in another color. The reality is, though, that even despite these two splits, the ANC still remained as strong as ever, and these two parties took off just a few percentage points or fractions of percentage point from the ANC support. In the 1999 election, for example, contested by both the PAC as well as the UDM, the ANC still managed to get more than 66% of the national vote, with the UDM only getting 3.4%, and the PAC getting an absolutely meager 0.7% of the national vote. Yet, from 2005 onwards, things started to genuinely change radically for the ANC. We all know that the three major split-offs from the party have been the EFF and the MK party, but over the past 2 decades, the ANC and its daughter parties have suffered no less than 15 splits. That's right, 15 factions in total have already broken away from the ANC, either directly or indirectly, and every single one of these factions have taken some of the ANC's core voter base with them, weakening the ANC to the point where it is today, not the giant that it used to be, and actually a party on its last legs. The most notable breakaways include splits off such as that of Cope of Lakota during the early days of the Zuma presidency to Floyd Shivambu's new AMM party formed last year. And so, Africa's strongest political movement, which had managed to remain virtually completely intact and untouchable for more than a century amongst its black supporters, split no less than 15 times in a period during which the country has only held 4 general elections. These, everything that I've explained up until now, are the very clear sign of a political movement that is dying, a political movement that is absolutely falling apart. This is exactly what happened to the National Party following the era of Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd. After Verwoerd, it suffered several splits, first under Dr. Albert Hertzog, who founded the re-established National Party, and then in the early 80s, the Conservative Party under Andries Treurnig. Within a decade and a half after the Conservative Party was founded, the once mighty and also almost untouchable National Party, the previous untouchable party in this country, was effectively reduced to ashes in little more than a footnote in the chronicles of this country's history. And interestingly, by that time, there also wasn't anything left of its split of parties either. The ANC is now showing all of the exact same typical symptoms of a political movement that is well and truly on its deathbed as the National Party did when it started splitting and tearing itself apart. Recurring factionalism, declining electoral dominance, and an ever-growing list of former leaders who would rather build new parties than remain inside the old one. No two political movements collapse in exactly the same way, but history suggests, especially in South Africa, that when a governing party that was so dominant for so many decades begins producing breakaways faster than it can replace them, its era of dominance is drawing close. All of the signs are pointing to the fact that the ANC's time is now coming to a close. It is internally weakened and fractured. It has lost virtually all of its international support, and perhaps most significantly, it has lost the ability or any ability to inspire and mobilize the massive historic base to actually come out and vote for it. Today, less people are voting than had voted in 1994, despite the growth of the population. The fact of the matter is that even on top of all of these recent splits and fragmentations, millions of would-be ANC voters are increasingly simply opting to stay home on election day rather than even voting for one of the split-offs of the ANC, knowing full well that whether they vote for the ANC or any of its 17 daughter parties at this stage will have absolutely no positive impact on their lives, and the only reason why they can't bring themselves to vote for a party that is not a split-off of the ANC is because they view it as a white party and they would rather see this country fall apart completely, collapse completely, than voting for a white party. And yet, at the same time, this very base absolutely will not vote for any party that is not ideologically and historically aligned with the ANC and any of its daughter parties, due to the fact that they still have loyalty to what the ANC represented. The struggle not just against apartheid, but against the so-called whiteness of this country. In a recent video, we highlighted the true extent to which the ANC has been weakened and how the end of their rule is becoming more inevitable by the day. Check out that full report that goes a little bit deeper into the actual internal politics and show how the party is actually falling apart from inside, which we believe is very valuable for information for every one of you that watched the view by clicking on this link right here. And if you do appreciate the content and the research that we put out on this channel, please do support our work, become supporters of us by becoming a paying member of the Willem Petscher Group by simply following these easy steps on the banner below. Goodbye and God bless.